All right, I got another trailer reaction for you. On August 31st, The House of the Dragon on HBO is going to be releasing. It is the prequel to Game of Thrones. I am a big Game of Thrones fan. Regardless of how the show ended, it still remains to be one of my favorite shows of all time. It's just a world I absolutely love. I'm looking forward to The House of Dragon. I'm not overly excited for it because it's not really a prequel I was fully interested in when they announced it, but you never know. It could prove me wrong. It could end up being really good and really entertaining. Now let's look at the teaser trailer and see if it changes my opinion on anything.
What is this? Brief, mortal life, if not the pursuit of legacy.
I, Rickon Stark.
Nice.
I, Paulus Velaryon. I, Ormond Baratheon.
Nice.
Promise to be faithful
to King Viserys
and to his named heir,
Princess Rhaenyra.
Rhaenyra Targaryen.
Men would sooner put the realm to the torch than see a woman ascend the Iron Throne.
We play an ugly game. You have the determination to win it.
Oh, that's cool.
History does not remember blood. It remembers names.
Okay, pretty good. First of all, right off the bat, what this show seems like it is going to be good at delivering to you is a classic Game of Thrones show. They aren't changing the vibe or the atmosphere or the tone of what Game of Thrones is all about. It's still going to be dark, gritty, violent, gory. It is still technically a game. Game of Thrones was all about the lies, the deceit, and the betrayal, all to gain one throne, the seat of power. And it still looks like this show is going to give you those aspects to make it feel relatable to Game of Thrones, which is very good. It's very smart. You got to attract the audience from the previous show into this show. Whether you read the books, you're a casual watcher, you only watch the show, it doesn't matter. They need to do something to bring your attention back to them, and this is a good way to do it. It was nice to hear some of the musical themes they're using in the trailer, because I'm sure we'll get some brand new scores for the show, but they are still trying to keep you connected to Game of Thrones, like I said, so they were using specific musical themes within the trailer that makes you feel the vibe of the Targaryens. It makes you feel the vibe of King's Landing and the Iron Throne, which, by the way, the Iron Throne looks awesome. So much more deadlier than the way the Iron Throne looked in the Game of Thrones show. There's literally swords sticking from the ground around the Iron Throne. This really is going to show the height of power that the Targaryens had 200 years before Game of Thrones. And what I also really enjoy from the trailer is how much they are actually referencing to the events of Game of Thrones, even though it is 200 years prior. I guarantee you there are going to be specific characters or specific scenes or specific moments in this show that are basically going to foreshadow actual events that happen in the Game of Thrones show, whether the character knows it or not. And it's just going to fluidly tie in these two shows even better. I think for a lot of people, Game of Thrones is really cool because of the dragons. Everyone loved seeing the dragons in the Game of Thrones series. Now you're literally getting a show called The House of the Dragon about a family who were literal parents to dragons. And once again, this is in a time where dragons were a little more rampant than they were in Game of Thrones. And they even talk about in Game of Thrones how over time the dragons started to become smaller and smaller, and then they just eventually died out. Now I'm assuming we'll be able to see dragons in the height of power. Whether you like season 6, 7, 8 of Game of Thrones, there are a lot of moments in those seasons where you get to see the full potential of the dragons that Daenerys had. Those scenes were so epic and so monumental. They didn't come around a lot. And when they did in Game of Thrones, it made you appreciate those moments so much more. But now you're making a show where you might be able to get those types of scenes every couple episodes, every 2 episodes maybe. You won't have to wait an entire season to see one of Daenerys's dragons do something epic. We might be able to see that much more often. Now, I skimmed through a couple of the comments on this trailer, and it seems like a lot of people are excited, and that's a great sign. I'm very excited to be getting Game of Thrones back on TV. What's it been? 3-4 years? It's been a long time, and when Game of Thrones ended, we all had a very, very, very sour taste in our mouth. We all knew that show should have been 10 to 12 seasons. Honestly, I think it should have just been 10, and at the very least, season 7 and 8 should have been 10 episodes long, not 7 and not 6 episodes. I don't want to dive too much into that though, because it makes me very frustrated talking about it. But what I do want to say though is I think as fans, we need to be a little cautious. Not everyone is going to come into a new Game of Thrones show, a spin-off of any kind, and pull what Benioff and Wise did by just simply becoming lazy and not caring about the show anymore. There are actually people out there who care about their craft and who care about developing a good story. Now, why I say we should be cautious though is because even though we don't need to necessarily be looking out for guys like them who are just going to ruin projects to ruin projects, I think we need to be cautious because of how monumental Game of Thrones was and how monumentally bad the ending was for the show. The last thing we want to do is just throw our trust to new people making a spin-off show saying, yeah, this show's going to be godlike. We won't need to worry about what happened to Game of Thrones happening here in the House of Dragons or whatever other show they got planned. And I think what's really interesting and something we might have to fight off is how long are we going to be sitting here watching and thinking to ourselves, okay, season 1 was great, but are they going to ruin 2? Season 2 was great. Are they going to ruin 3? Season 3 was great. Are they going to ruin 4? And so on, so on. And eventually that's what happened to Game of Thrones. Now, I know a lot of people always talk about how Game of Thrones season 1 to 4 are damn near perfect, and I absolutely agree. Although I will say I actually really like season 5 and I like season 6. It's season 7 and 8 that just plummets. I think we need to let this show gain our trust before we simply walk into it and say this was the best show ever made, season 1 was great, this is going to be better than Game of Thrones. Because who knows? This show is very important to the overall Game of Thrones world, though, especially when it comes to future productions of other shows. It could decide whether or not Game of Thrones is here to stay. I think this show can be capable of doing many things, and I also think that we can look past this show and say, what other prequels do you got for me? Because I'm drawn back in. I'm into it again. Are you ever planning on going ahead of Game of Thrones? Is there something that happens after those events? which is something I think a lot of us would like to see. The chances of that happening are slim, but it is still something we would want. There's a lot of things you could do in this show and other prequel shows that could tie in certain things into the Game of Thrones show. Like, think about it, guys. Bran, even though his character was completely ruined in the later seasons, he is the three-eyed raven. He can go to the past. He can analyze things from the past. There's a possibility we could maybe even see Bran show up in other shows of him simply just analyzing history and seeing why things look the way they do in his time. They already pulled things like that in the Game of Thrones show. When he went back in time and found out how Jon Snow was born, they could do the same thing with these other prequel shows. And you know what? They probably wouldn't do this, but I think it would actually be really cool. You could get subtle hints of Bran maybe in a court meeting in the Iron Throne room, and you just see Bran hidden in the distance, just looking at everything. You don't need to focus on him. He doesn't need to be a character. That's just a really cool little subtle hint you could throw into the show. They probably wouldn't do that, but that would be a very neat tie-in. Overall, I think this show is going to be interesting because of everything I just previously said. And if there's anything we can say about the Game of Thrones world, it's that they know how to craft very, very good characters. And now we're in a position where we will get to see descendants of characters that we grew watching in the Game of Thrones show. We'll get to see different generations of Starks and Baratheons and Targaryens, and I think there's a lot that could come from that, and I just think overall it's just gonna be fun. But now it's your turn, as usual, to let me know in the comments below what you thought of the trailer, what you think of the show, and what you hope to see in this show's future. But that is it for this video, everyone, and like always, I will talk to you all very soon.